Okay, this unit will be a quick glimpse and look at the start of management, which is going to be a basis for some of the more involved things that we're going to be doing next. So this is going to be kind of that foundation to set up second semester as we start going through a little bit more projects and a little bit more collaborative stuff. That's going to need a little bit more planning, a little bit more leadership, and a little bit more kind of job responsibility stuff. So before we get started, if you could take a few minutes to start the note guide to answer those first two questions, and then be ready to discuss those answers with the class or with a partner. Okay, so what is management? Like we usually do when we start out here, I show you the textbook definition, and then we can kind of adjust to it and put it into our own words. So management based on the text, and again, this is a management class, so this is the textbook definition for this, is the process used to accomplish organizational goals through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. It's just PLOC. Sometimes you'll hear it as PLOC, and we'll talk about it in both ways here. And you do that with people and other organizational resources. And we're talking about resources such as time. So we're not just talking about like time on a clock, but time in a workday, hourly salaries, employee time, time to get things done, things like that. So time is a limited resource. Then, of course, money, actual cash that we're investing into the business, money coming in, money going out, things like that. And then the space. So, are we a big warehouse? Are we a big company that has this massive headquarters? Or are we kind of an online space where we have the flexibility to work elsewhere? So, we got to understand what our space and whether that is a crutch or is it something that we can use to our advantage. So these four parts of management that we're seeing are the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So here's just a little summary of each. So planning, first thing that you're going to be doing is determining a course of action. So in the green here, you'll see each of the three parts that go along with planning. So vision and mission statements, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail later. Strategizing, so kind of making that plan, think about what it is that we're going to be doing to reach a goal or an objective, which again, we'll talk about a little bit more detail for goal setting and objectives. Then the organizing part is basically taking the planning and then figuring out who is going to do the best at which spot. So that's coordinating activities and resources. So once we figure out what our goals and objectives are, we're going to figure out the best way to orient our staff that they can work to the best of their abilities while also being the best resource for the company. So if we are a manufacturing company, we're going to put the people with the more technical skills on the manufacturing floor, where maybe we put the people with more finance skills in the office department or things like that. So making sure that people are doing things that are relevant to their skills. Next is leading. So within management, part of it is being a resource, but also somebody that people can look up to. And that's not just talking about motivation or things like that, but just someone who can take control of a room, manage the employees, manage their time, space, and those other resources that we talked about, but doing so in a motivating factor, in a motivating way. So again, making sure that the people understand what it is that they're supposed to be doing, managing them in a way that works for the situation, and giving them those directives so that they know what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And then lastly, the big kind of part of management that we think of and a bigger aspect is controlling. So monitoring and evaluating activities, or supervising, if you kind of want to even abbreviate that further. So in controlling, it sounds bad, like we are super involved in telling people or watching exactly what it is that they're doing. But the reality is it's more of an evaluation measure, to see how things are going and then evaluate. So evaluate is not always a bad thing. We can see things that are working well and then find ways to put that elsewhere into the organization, or we can find things that need to be changing and then we can work collaboratively, kind of from the beginning then, to see what needs to be done with the planning again. Okay, so what skills do good managers have? We're going to break those down into three different types of skills. I'll throw all of those up there so you can talk about each of them. So the technical skills is the ability to perform tasks in a specific discipline or department. So we're going to talk about each of those in a little bit more detail here in a second. Then there's the human resources skills. So that is the ability to establish that connection and actually communicate person to person, whether that's with employees, customers, or anybody else that you're going to be working with. And then lastly is the conceptual skills, and that's the kind of bigger picture, the more managerial type of idea of looking at the organization as a whole and seeing how everything relates to each part. So take some time to look at those and then rank the three skills and levels of importance. Okay, when you have some time, you can take a look at this link. It goes to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it shows business management administration careers. So you can take some time to look at that, see the education, see the types of things that you can do within management. Is it always business related or things like that? So you can click this link, see the salaries, what it is that you need to do in order to get involved with that, and the requirement or those skills within it. So what is it that they're kind of looking for? And this is, again, information that you can see on that Bureau of Labor Statistics. It tells you the skills required or the expected requirements, or what they want their managers to do in these business management administration roles. So what we're seeing today is that the management we tend to think of as like the old supervisor who's that crotchety old person. But the reality is that there has been a shift where managers are more progressive and are typically younger to relate better to their employees. And then we've seen a shift to provide resources for more minorities and women to get involved in that managerial roles. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the managers are actually coming more from their background in the business world as opposed to their education background. So while there is still a lot of value in education, of course, they're putting more value in the ability to connect the content or the stuff that you're working on to the real world. So the managers are finding a way to base this on real world situations and and find the best way to get things done that connects with their current workforce. And what we're finding is that rather than having people do these individual roles, is that teamwork and collaboration has been that shift. So again, a lot of you hate the teamwork aspect of this class, but a lot of it because a lot of that comes from that shift in the business world that has become that collaborative effort. So we're trying to emphasize that team and team building to again work on this management to find the best people's skills and how they're going to work with each other. So rather than managers just being supervisors, which is why that's only one part of the four parts of management, is that managers have to be more involved than they typically have been in that supervisor role. So they have to be skilled communicators, making sure that they, again, can connect, which is why we're seeing that younger and more progressive shift towards management. And then being team players, meaning that they're actually going to be involved and part of this process. Okay, so the technical skills that we talked about earlier, again, the ability to perform tasks in a specific discipline or department. So this is, again, the actual work that you're going to be doing. Can you do that? So as an accountant, can you work with Google Sheets? Can you create budgets? Can you actually perform that actual thing that we're looking for? And these are measurable things. Can you do it or can you not? So one of the questions here is, do you expect your manager, so the person that is in that planning, leading, organizing, controlling, do you expect your manager to have the same skills required of the people they manage? So if you are a sandwich artist at Jimmy John's, do you expect your manager to be able to do your job? So take some time to think about that and then be ready to discuss. Okay, after the technical skills, we go into the human resources skills or the HR skills, which is again having more of that connection to their employees and finding the best way to communicate them and have that established relationship. So, why is communication important from a manager? Again, something I want you to think about. What do you expect from your manager in as far as that communication goes? Um, do you expect them to check in with you? Do you expect them to reach out to you on your off days? Do you have the ability and the comfort to go talk to them and go into their office unannounced. So what is it that you expect from your manager? Take some time to think about that. And then the last question at the bottom there, what is the biggest skill regarding communication? So once again, take some time to talk about that. Okay, lastly, this is like the bigger actual part of management, the conceptual skills, looking at the organization as a whole and then seeing how the parts kind of work together. So, what we have to do with this conceptual skills is that the management has to, again, look at the parts of a business. So, like for breaking it down, we'll look at the finance department, the marketing department, the HR department, and we'll see how they all work together in order to reach that organizational goal or that big picture in the middle. So, within that problem solving, decision making, planning, and organizing, you have to figure out what is the best decision that relates to all of the different parts of the organization. So, who can do it best? What type of conversation do they need to be having? And within the problem solving comes that decision making. So, we're going to talk about that here in a second based on this rational decision making. But in the problem solving, you have to choose between two or more alternatives. So, this is why when we're doing our projects, I'm always asking you to come up with more than one solution so that you can figure out which one is actually the best, depending on what it is that you actually have to choose from. So that decision making I'm talking about, so you'll see this, I'm putting this all up here and just going to talk about each of them at once here. So the decision making model, define the situation. So what is it that is going on? So this is the same kind of decision making that we talk about within DECA for those of you that want to have those conversations, especially when it asks to come up with the best choice or the best option. So the first thing that you want to do is define that situation, or what is known in the Myers model as recognition. So what is it that's going on? And then in number 2, that goes to the fact-finding mission, is to describe and collect the needed information. So what is it that we have to figure out, and how are we going to collect that information? So are we going to develop surveys? Are we going to just do some quick research through observations, or what is it that we're going to be doing? Number 3 is talking about alternatives to the potential outcome that you decide. So we can either do a little, do a lot, or do nothing. So that is where we're talking about the alternatives coming up for option 1, option 2, and option 3. And then what you have to do is you don't just make that decision by yourself. You have to come up with your staff, with your management, with your team, and develop agreement among those involved. So you should present your ideas and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So once you develop the agreement, then you put that idea into practice and you decide which alternative is best. So option A, option B, option C, and then you do what that option is. So is it pulling the burgers from the stores worldwide? Okay, then number 6, do it. Okay, then number 7, you're not just done once you make that decision. You actually have to evaluate it and follow up to it and then adjust as necessary. So was it the right idea to pull the burgers from the grocery stores worldwide? Well, it seems like it was. Is there any follow-up? No, it does not seem so. So there's always that evaluation, and then you have to decide if there's anything else that you have to do after that. So when it comes to decision making, not everybody is always cool, calm, and collected under pressure. And what is it that kind of causes those issues? So this is something that we just want to talk on really quickly. And maybe this is something that you see that you could see yourself struggling with when it comes to making a decision. So when it says what prevents you or others to make an effective decision, this could be something as simple as going out to lunch, or for many of you, it's going to be like, oh, where am I going to go to college? Do I even want to go to college? Things like that. So, what is it that prevents you from going through that rational decision making process? Typically, something known as complacency, which is basically you're just good how things are. I don't need to change anything. I'm just chilling. I'm doing what I need to be doing. I'm all good. Number 2 is avoidance. So, you don't make a decision because whatever outcome you choose, maybe there's going to be an upset party. So, rather than make a decision, you just completely avoid it. And then that just leaves that decision in limbo. So, then nothing gets done. Number 3 is panic, so that fight or flight. So what is it that we're going to be doing? If you have to choose right now, right this second, are you going to make the best decision? You're going to go with your gut decision. So it's impossible to do the research and things if you're in that panic state. So taking your time to calm yourself down and go through the decision-making process. And then lastly is indecisiveness. You just can't make your decision. So Is it option A? Is it option B? I don't know, flip a coin, anything like that. You need to have, in order to be an effective manager, you need to be having that decision and you need to be confident in that choice. So you need to be able to present your idea in a confident manner. Otherwise, your staff, your employees are not going to buy into what it is that you're trying to be doing. So within problem solving, um, this is the part of the process that we can figure out what it is that we're going to need to be doing. And what we want to do in our problem solving is, rather than just making something super, super fast, we want to kind of go through a quicker decision making process. So decision making, you go through all of that process where you present the solutions and things like that. But problem solving, it's usually something that's reactionary. So my my tire popped while I was driving to work. What do? I got to solve that problem immediately. Where decision making, some of you are deciding about college. Well, you got some time to do that. You can come through that. But within problem solving, I need to figure that out right now. So what are some problem solving techniques? So these are against some everyday problems that are short term. So you can still plan for them, but it's less of that long term situations. So how can we figure out what to do in our problem solving? Brainstorming. So coming up with a different, whether it's a graphic organizer, whether it's talking with a teammate, anything like that, but brainstorming and just talking through different ideas, throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks. Then there's something called a PMI, which is pluses, minuses, and implications. So what that basically is you're deciding, based on the decisions, what the situation is and the possible outcomes, what are the pros and cons, and then what are the possible outcomes of those decisions. So the pros, cons, and then the outcome are the pluses, minuses, and implications. Okay, we talked about vision. So within vision, it's more than just a goal. So what we're trying to figure out is what it is that we're trying to do, where we are trying to go. So we're looking at our future. So we're looking at our goals and our aspirations. So what is it that we're trying to accomplish, not now, but what is it that we're looking to become and push ourselves to become in the future. So there's a link here for vision statements, so you can take a look at some of those for how to write a vision statement and what breaks it down. So I'll let you go ahead and take a look at that link when you can. But that vision statement is that formal way of communicating your business goals and commitments to others. So again, everybody needs to know where it is and what direction that it is that we're trying to do. So if everybody can establish that shared vision, then everything else can kind of work its way toward reaching that. I know it says more than a goal, but reaching that outcome. You need to make sure it's ambitious. So you don't want to just be like, oh, I want to survive to the end of this year. No, your vision is where you want to become the best at something. So we plan to become the most well-known business in the marketing sector by 2027 or something like that. So how will the company make the difference in this world? So what is it that our impact is going to be? And that's going to align with what you're trying to do within your company's philosophy. So within a vision, you're again looking what it is that you're trying to become. And then the mission is what your purpose is. So that's, I know it gets a little bit confusing, but your vision statement is usually a little bit shorter and it's that potential outcome, that long-term, that long-term view of the organization. The mission statement, though, is why does your organization exist, or your fundamental purpose? So, what is it that you provide? So, that's the brand purpose. What do you offer and who do you give it to? So, we are the premier um, apparel organization for athletes in North America. We as a brand, so then we're going into brand values. We as a brand believe that everybody has the ability to become an athlete. So there we go, brand values, connecting that to everybody. And then our goals are to make everybody feel comfortable and have an accessible way to exercise. Boom, there we go. I just created a mission statement at the top of my head that accomplishes all the purpose, values, and goals in that one more lengthy aspect of the mission and vision statement. And then again, here's a link of some of those examples. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at for this planning idea is goal settings and objectives. So goals, we've heard them all before, but we want to make sure that we understand that those are broad. And we'll talk about how goals can get a little bit more specific as we go through. But those goals are long-term accomplishments that an organization wishes to attain. So we can put this down to the personal aspect as well. So it's a broad, long-term accomplishment. I want to graduate high school with a 4.0 GPA. Boom. There's my long-term accomplishment because it's not just right now. It sets on the future. It's broad because even though I did put that 4.0 GPA in there, it's still broad of just like graduating high school. I didn't put any of the other things I want to accomplish during that time. So you see in here, there's objective statements, and those go into your goals. So if I am a sophomore in high school and I want to graduate in 3 years, sophomore, junior, senior year, with a 4.0, then I need to have objectives at the end of my sophomore year, maybe first semester of my junior year, second semester, junior year, see how that kind of goes. So I have those kind of check-in points to check my progress. So that goal of becoming that 4.0 student by my senior year is going to have multiple objectives. So multiple short-term accomplishable goals as well. It's a good spot to take a break, and we can follow up with this the next day. Okay, so here's a little bit of a review. So which statements are vision statements and which are mission statements? So take some time to go through that. I'm going to say the answers here in 5, 4, 3, 2, so you can pause it and start it again right now. So number 1 is Dunkin' Donuts mission statement. Number 2 is Disney's mission statement. Number 3 is Chipotle's vision statement. Number 4 is Etsy's mission statement. And number 5 is Ford's vision statement. So take some time to discuss what makes those different between the two. Okay, now to go a little bit more detail into that POLC or that POLC for types of management, we're going to go into each individual part here. So the first is planning. So there are 4 types of planning: strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency planning. So strategic is figuring out, again, that long-term organizational outcome and how are we going to reach those goals. Number 2, tactical planning. So that is what's going to be done and who is going to be doing it. So a tactical, again, think about those skills that are required. While tactical planning, how are we going to implement those skills that are required? Third part, operational planning. So we talked about that, kind of the operation. What is it that is going to be done, but not who's going to be doing it? How is that going to be done based on our company's objectives? So are we going to manufacture things at a certain rate? Are we going to make sure that everybody has their certain quota that they're going to reach? So the operation to reach that overall outcome. And then lastly, contingency plan. Sure, you've heard that before. Basically, a backup plan. What are you going to do if something goes wrong? So it's an alternative course of action or that plan. Okay, this is part of your note guide. This is based on the construction project that was done at the end of last year for the old space in 104 for the new foods lab. So what type of planning is each of these? Take some time, A, B, C, or D. And then here's your answer: 5, 4, 3, pause it and resume now. 1, operational plan. 2, tactical plan. 3, strategic plan. And 4, contingency plan. So again, define each one of those and look at how each of those relate to that. Okay, so planning, again, a little bit of summary into each of it. Planning typically follows the flowchart of strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency. So again, looking at how the overall goal, who's going to do it, how is it going to be done, and then what happens if it doesn't get done how we need it to. Okay, moving on to the questions and planning. I'm sure you've heard this before, called SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. So looking at it from first internal and external evaluation of your business. So strengths and weaknesses are both internal, meaning that there's something that comes within your organization. So strengths: what do you do well? What makes you better than the competition? What advantages do you have? So again, that's broken down in this picture here on the left. Weaknesses: so this isn't always a negative. It's something that what can you do to improve on? Maybe you're a little bit technologically behind or something like that. Opportunities and threats then are external, things that you can't control, but things that you can still adjust to. So opportunities: how can you expand? Is there new technology coming out? Things like that. And then threats: are you a company that relies on imports? Well, now you got to worry about tariffs, things like that, other threats, whether it's monetary, government, or anything like that. Okay, continue on your note guide. Okay, trying to get through these next ones here relatively quickly. Organizing, how are we again putting our resources in the best spot? So you'll see this little hierarchy chart, which is the order of supervision or control. So person at the top has the most control, and then it kind of has that trickle down effect. So you can take a look at that to see who relates to who, and it also shows you that kind of chain of command. So organizing, you create that responsibility, and then based on the skills that you have, you need to find the perfect and best employees to do so. So that's a little bit more of that hiring and placing of employees as well. Leading then, leading, you need to find a way to guide and motivate employees. So communication, establish that corporate way of values, the ethical decision making and behaviors, and then making sure that everybody understands their responsibility and can take the pressure when they need to. Different types of leadership styles: autocratic, participative, or democratic, and free reign. So, autocratic, the manager tells you what to do, who does it, and there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, without consulting others, I'm telling you what to do, autocratic. Participative or democratic, we work together. Hey, show of hands, who wants to go to the lab? Okay, just majority rules, go do it like that. Then lastly, free reign. Hey, you need to have your presentations done at the end of next week. Do whatever you need to be doing. That would be total free reign. So I'll have those objectives, those check-ins, but it's up to you to do whatever it is you need to do to get that done. Here's a look at each of those in a little bit more detail. Take some time, take a picture, look at that in detail if you need to. Okay, lastly, controlling, evaluate, measure, and monitor performance. So, how is it that we make sure that everything is going to be getting done? I can't just tell you to get this stuff done. I need to make sure that you are following our company's goals and kind of standards. So, what are those standards? For your long-term project, I wanted you to have stuff done in a relatively timely manner, wanted you to have professional communication and conversations, and then having those progress check-ins as well. That's how we do that, monitor and record performance. So a checklist item, getting things signed off, creating those contact logs, and having that communication to record that performance to see what needs to be adjusted. Now, compare results against standards might be a little bit tougher, but did you do what you need to be doing? Check mark. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 5. You have to set that grading standard, communicate those results. Excuse me. So I give you your rubrics back. I give you those rubrics with a little bit of notes on them, and then provide that opportunity to, for number 5, take corrective action and provide that feedback. So I tell you at the bottom, hey, maybe you were reading off your slides a little bit too much. There's your opportunity to take corrective action for the next time by using my feedback. Maybe that means use less speaker notes, just look out and try to have a little bit more preparation or things like that. Okay, last thing, here's a little bit of a summary on YouTube that goes over that decision-making process. And that was a really, really quick breakdown of the introduction to management. Take a look at the note guide, make sure you answer all those questions, and then you'll have your case study, which will relate to your project.